Hello and welcome to Cairns Catches Up. Tom Cairns, your host, where I speak to people within the motorsport world, the challenges they face, and perhaps the advice they could share on those wanting to pursue a career in motorsport. Now, today's guest is someone who is passionate about her science, the environment, astronomy, and followed the electrical cars. It's Nicki Shields. Hello.
Hello, Tom. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
No problem indeed. How have things been with you? Because I'd imagine it's been quite a busy winter for you, considering the Formula E rounds we've had since Formula One had finished. I know you've been to Sao Paulo, Mexico City, and most recently in Jeddah. But in general, how have things been with you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it has. I mean, life is always hectic, isn't it? There's always lots going on, and we don't have a normal kind of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, where every week looks the same, which sometimes I dream about having. But no, we love it, don't we? The difference of our calendar, it can either be super hectic or you get a little bit of downtime. So that's why we have finally had the opportunity to do this podcast, because we've been talking about it for a while. But it has been, yeah, a busy start to the Formula E season. Traveling to, as you mentioned, Sao Paulo, Mexico City, and Jeddah. And we've got Miami coming up. But before Miami, we have F1 Academy back, which I'm very excited to be doing. Back on commentary, which is quite a new thing for me. I've always done a bit of commentary for Formula E, but that's mainly kind of practice sessions. And whereas with F1 Academy, it's been doing lead commentary. So a nice new challenge to get my teeth stuck into. And yeah, looking forward to getting started on it.
Yeah, excellent. And F1 Academy is not too far away. They begin in Shanghai. They go there for the first time, and it's Jeddah, then Miami, and then in Canada, of all places. Yes, they are going to Montreal, followed by Sanford, Singapore, and concluding, of all places, Las Vegas. Very, very exciting for the F1 Academy girls to be going there. We've got a lot of newcomers as well on the F1 Academy grid. We've got the likes of Ava Agonostadidis, if I pronounced that correctly. I know it's quite a tongue twister, that one. But we've got the likes of Emma Phil-Bermeyer. We've got Courtney Crone, who featured as a wildcard. Nina Gaiman, who also featured as a wildcard last year. We've got Albert Harrop Larson, Joan Kikonte, who most recently just been announced. Rafael Ferreira is also in there, the young Brazilian. And Alicia Polmoski, who you may remember featured in Qatar, who was absolutely brilliant despite only being one race that she did, unfortunately, because of something that happened in a Porsche race that forced the cancellation, and so of race number two, which Alicia was only able to do one race. But Harry, since F1 Academy, well, since your gig at F1 Academy had started last year, Nikki, how have you found the experience of being in the comms box at Formula One?
Terrifying,
Really?
but in a really brilliant way. Like, we always hunt out a bit of an adrenaline rush, don't we? I think if you love motorsport, you love a bit of adrenaline. From getting it from whether in the pit lane, standing at the side of the pitch, or watching it at home on TV. And I definitely get that from F1 Academy, that's for sure. But very different because I mean, I'm used to wandering up and down the pit lane and being out interviewing drivers face to face, getting a sense of what's going on because I am right there in the action. Whereas commentary is completely different. You are actually almost watching it like a viewer, and you're helping to tell that story during the race. It's much more obviously play-by-play action and ultimately, I want to tell the stories that we can all see. There's no point when you're having a really frenetic race, telling stories that aren't being shown on pictures because that kind of leads the audience off in the wrong direction. So you're there to really just help the audience understand what is going on in the race because sometimes wheel to wheel action, plenty of overtakes, it's rather busy. And also I think for F1 Academy we've got so many young, new, very talented drivers, but perhaps drivers that the audience isn't aware of. So we are there to educate them about them and, give them an introduction to who these drivers are, where they've come from, their background, their passion. for motorsport where they've raced previously, and help them kind of guide the audience through that journey. And we've got some amazing fans as well, like an incredible amount of people are now watching F1 Academy, which is amazing to see, given it is really in its infancy. You know, it's only had 2 full seasons, one of which has been on the F1 calendar. So really, only one season has had that big audience. And already it has a really, really brilliant following. So I can't wait to see where the series goes. And it's very exciting to play a very small part. One thing I would say I do quite like, though, is that with commentary, you get to have your notes in front of you. Presenting, you have to learn them all. I
Yeah,
mean, don't
yeah.
get me wrong. I still try to learn them because there's no time to read them, but it's a lovely little security blanket having your notes in front of you. So I love doing lots of prep. That's the sort of side of the job I also really enjoy doing. And then kind of, basically trying to consolidate tons and tons of notes into 1 or 2 pages. Um, which has taken me a while to sort of fine tune that art. But yeah, it's quite nice actually as your little security blanket, you have it there. Whereas live television, you ain't got that security. So you just have to back yourself and make sure you remember them.
Absolutely. And F1 Academy is something I'm learning as well. I'm looking at the list of drivers, some of which I've not really heard of before. I've also had to like look at, who's doing well on the karting side of things because with F1 Academy, I think you've got to be at least 16 to enter. The maximum age is 25. So some of them are coming directly from karting before they get into it. Some of them may have done single seater experience in like Formula 4, which is what F1 Academy is essentially a Formula 4 type championship. But when you look at drivers like Abby Pullen, who dominated the championship last year, she came in with an abundance of experience in Formula 4. How do you see the championship of F1 Academy going in the next 5 to 10 years? Because I do back the idea of it. I just wonder what it will lead to and what these drivers are competing. What are they going to take away from it that's going to help them in their long-term futures?
Hmm. Well, I mean, we all know how hard it is to get a race seat. How hard it is to find the funding. Abby Pulling, prime example, when she's been racing in the past in British F4, she had to drop out due to funding issues, I think not once, but possibly twice. So it's not down to her talent. Her talent got her there, but funding issues meant she couldn't race. She missed out on part of that season. And so this gives not only the drivers an opportunity to hone in on their skill as a driver and to actually properly compete wheel to wheel in front of a massive audience on some of the greatest circuits, against some of the best talent. It also gets them in front of people, which might open a door to get them that race seat in an F4, eventually F3, F2, and follow that ladder up to the top. And I think, again, F1 Academy, as you mentioned, some of the new drivers coming in. I mean, we've had Jess Edgar was one of the youngest drivers last season, but now you look and there's a sort of a whole wave of much younger drivers coming in. And I think this is going to be the absolute key to F1 Academy is finding the talent who are super young, really at the start of their career. So they can use F1 Academy to gain that experience to then jump across into that kind of the Formula Triangle. Obviously, coming into F1 Academy towards the end of your season, perhaps that that limits the amount of possibilities and it limits the opportunity that F1 Academy can give you. But as we're seeing already, um, more drivers are coming up through karting. So we've had the Discover Your Drive program, which is a karting program to basically again find talent from a young age. Okay, when F1 Academy started, it was hard to find drivers of a certain caliber. It's only going to get easier. And ultimately, we want the field to be super competitive. Everyone has to earn their place there. Everyone has to be of a certain caliber when it comes to driving ability. And so I think it's just going to get more and more competitive as time goes on. So in 5, 10 years' time, watch out. I think it's going to be way more competitive to get into because there's going to be a lot bigger talent pool to choose from. And then, the opportunity is there for the driver to hopefully extend their career into the other ranks.
Yeah.
So
And what are the chances, would you say, of seeing more not necessarily those getting into Formula One for the time being, but those maybe elevated themselves up into Formula Three because we've got other series like Formula Regional, we've got Formula Four or GP3 as it is. Where how often are we going to see more young girls in Formula Three? Because we obviously had Sophia Fleur, she competed in that for a few years now, but are we going to see more of the F1 Academy girls in Formula Three anytime soon? Do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not necessarily just going to be F1 Academy girls. It's going to be, motorsport as a whole, including Girls on Track, Motorsport UK, sort of overseas as well, globally. There is a massive push at the moment to capture the imagination of girls from a very young age, get them involved with the sport, make sure they realize that there is a place for them, there is opportunity if they want it. So if we get more in from a karting level, more in from a grassroots level, you're naturally going to see more in yeah, GB3, F2, F1, it's going to happen. We've been waiting for it for a while. It ain't going to happen tomorrow. If someone goes, oh, well, we're doing all of this work, we're trying our hardest, but why would we still not have a woman in F1? And it's like, because the pool of talent is not big enough and you can't grow it overnight. So yeah, I mean, 100%, we will definitely through all, I think all formulas, through all motorsport disciplines, we will slowly see more women coming through. And that's obviously on the grid, but also behind the scenes as well. There's a huge push for more engineers, more mechanics, more team principals. We still don't have any female team principals. Why not?
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. It's happening, but just slowly, not
Yeah,
overnight.
I think it will need time in all honesty, because like you say, you have to go from the grassroots of motorsport, which is the karting stage. That's where your talent is going to emerge from. And it takes years to find the talent that you're after. So it does need a lot of time, it does need a lot of funding, and it needs talent from all over the world. I mean, you think about Bianca Bustamante, for instance, who's having to travel from the Philippines to be involved in this. You look
Yeah.
at Rafaela Ferreira, who's coming from Brazil, and some even from Asia, for instance. I'm trying to think of ones that I remember from Asia, like Miki Koyama, for instance. I remember racing the W Series in 2019. She arrived not really knowing a word of English, in all honesty, but somehow she still arrived and was okay. But we need more drivers like her to sort of get their names out there. That's what I think F1 Academy needs to maybe focus on, is like the grassroots of karting. Hence why we've got this Discover Your Drive thing that F1 Academy are doing, which I completely back, as well as what they're doing with F1 Academy being on the F1 support bill. Going to more about you, Nikki, because you've been involved as a TV presenter, live events host, and a YouTuber, most particularly within Formula E, that has been around since 2014 when it started in Beijing. How have you seen the series going from strength to strength? Because it's been going on for over a decade now. We're currently in the 11th season of the championship. But as a sport or as a championship, how have you seen it progress from your perspective?
Oh, it's like, I feel like it's literally like been like a little baby that is kind of in its maybe like teenage years at the moment. It's just about to blossom. No, it's been an amazing journey. We started out, yeah, first race 2014, Beijing. 20 cars on the grid, didn't really know if any of the cars were really even going to start, or certainly weren't sure if they were going to make it to the end of the race, because it was a huge new concept, racing electric cars. What? Battery powers? What? No fuel stops? What? I mean, the drivers had to swap cars halfway through the race because the battery wouldn't last till the end of the race, and they didn't want to do, obviously, and understandably so, a massive charge halfway through. So it's quite funny to look at how it's changed. But there's one thing that hasn't changed, and that is the caliber of teams involved, manufacturers and OEMs, and the caliber of drivers. It's always attracted kind of the best of the best, whether they're former X1, former ex-Formula One drivers. We've got world endurance champions, F2 or GP2 it was at the time, champions. Like, they are really some of the best drivers out there. So that's sort of always been consistent with Formula E. And the other thing is, flying to sort of all four corners of the world to these amazing majority street circuits in iconic cities. And that is the whole point of Formula E, to basically bring racing into cities. So, it's not necessarily the easiest to get to Silverstone, or doesn't necessarily have such a big community around Silverstone. So being able to do it in a city just suddenly attracts a different audience. So it's great. It's going well. And we've got a lovely show now on ITV4. It's produced by Whisper. We have a really, really awesome team. The likes of David Coulthard is involved. So we have fun along the way too, which is
Exactly.
awesome.
Yeah. And in fair Formula E, we've had 9 different champions in the first 10 seasons. Jean-Luc Verne is the only driver to have won on more than one occasion. Pascal Wehrlein, the most recent, in that thrilling title decider in London, involving him, Mitch Evans, and the other Jaguar driver, Nick Cassidy. That was the one I was trying to think of. They got there
I'm
in the end. Yeah. I mean,
impressed.
it's weird because I think back, I think it was season 7 where we had a ridiculous number of drivers in contention for the championship going into the last race in Berlin. I was like, how is this even possible? This sounds more like you'd find in a
Yeah.
video game, really.
What
But
was it? Mitch Evans, Nick DeVries, Jake Dennis, and
was it DaCosta? Was DaCosta involved in the last race? I'm trying to remember.
oh, it was Edo Mortara, I think.
Okay. Well, I remember because there was a start line accident involving, I think it was Mortara and might have been Evans that got stalled on the line, and Mortara managed to, well, he couldn't avoid the stricken car. I mean, to be honest, with Formula E cars, like when they're so close to each other, it's difficult to get out of the way when there's everyone trying to get through at the same
Yeah,
time.
that is the only tricky thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Tight, twisted. It's no
So,
runoff.
how have you found the challenge of becoming a sports broadcaster, Nikki? Because you come from a science background, but in terms of the opportunities of becoming a sports broadcaster, especially considering you're a woman, how have you found the challenge yourself through all the years since you finished your degree?
Yeah, I mean, I've absolutely loved it. So yeah, science was always the goal because that's what I did at university, and I thought it made perfect sense. And then I started doing a sustainability series, and actually, it was filming that where we did an episode on the future of the electric car, which, back then it would have been 2012, 2013, I reckon. Um, electric cars were shocking. So we did this show and, came to the conclusion that they were pretty bad at the time. But, there were possibilities going forward if the tech developed. And then we did an interview with Renault as part of that show, and they told us about this new championship that they were going to be part of, Formula E. And that's kind of where my slight jump across to the other side into the motorsport world started, because I was like, well, actually, this sounds quite cool. I can talk about battery technology, and I totally get the whole point of bringing green, clean cars into cities, but I can also talk about motorsport, and I've always had a massive passion for racing. So it's like I could actually bring my two passions and hobbies together here. So went and kind of met Formula E, and that's how that whole pathway and journey began. And so moving across into sports broadcasting has been brilliant, because I've still, particularly in the earlier days when I think the powertrain was this sort of big mystery to everyone, it was brilliant doing all the kind of explanatory videos. I loved that, trying to explain the difference between power and energy and the refueling, and, all of the conversation was just educating the audience about this new kind of car and how it functioned and how it worked, as well as obviously talking about the sport itself, which I then fell in love with. And I think working in live TV is just brilliant, because you get one shot at it and it's got to be right, and you've got to bring your audience along that journey. But you also need to sort of know all your facts and stats and figures, and get to know the drivers. You've got to bring out their personality, but you've also got to know all their facts and stats and their history and their driver database and all that stuff. Which, as a sort of the science in me, like, I really enjoy doing that sort of studying. before a race weekend. I'm quite analytical and, I enjoy researching them. So it's been a really fun journey. And I think, when I started in motorsport, yeah, there there wasn't a huge female contingent, but it's only got stronger. And now it's really weird to think that, some people still perceive motorsport as a male-dominated arena, because where I work, it's not at all. It's like the Whisper production company, 50% women. Behind the scenes with all the teams, 50% women. It's like it just feels so equal. We just need to change that shop window, which is, of course, the drivers.
Yeah, I mean
Going
we've had female drivers race in Formula E before. I think Catherine Legg was one of them. Simona Di Silvestro was another one. But I don't think we've had any on the Formula E grid since. We had recently a rookie practice session in Jeddah involving some drivers like Jamie Chadwick, for instance, who was involved in that, and a few others as well. I think Alice Powell might have been involved in it, thinking of it. But how soon are we going to see a female driver race again in Formula E? And not just any, but one that we know is going to
Mhm.
compete on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, so we had, yeah, you're right. We had the practice test in Jeddah, but we also had an all-female rookies test in Madrid towards the back end of last year, which it wasn't long. It was one session, so it was a couple of hours in the car, which, you know, isn't much time when you think these drivers need to get up to speed to driving a whole new type of powertrain. It's all about regenerative braking, lifting and coasting. There's so much going on, and it is so different to just jumping into a normal Formula car. So, when you've only got a couple of hours, it's hard to then set a quick time, sort of a representative time anyway of your pace and performance. But then we had Abby Pulling who was there, Jamie Chadwick who was there, and they were up there. They were maybe a couple of 2 seconds, I think, off the pace of the Formula E drivers, which, given the fact that these Formula E drivers have a huge amount of experience in the cars, I think the teams were really impressed with. So I don't know. All I do know is that some of those drivers have been hanging around the paddock a lot more. I've heard whispers, rumors that one of them might be getting a full seat soon. Um, so watch this space. I mean, it would be amazing if they did. Really, really special. But I think the most important thing is obviously they get that seat on merit. They
Mhm.
don't get that seat because they're women. And they would say the same thing. They don't want to just be there as a token female to change the sport, to be able to say, oh, we've got a female driver. That's not the point. You need that female driver to be better than the competition. And that's why she's got that race seat, because she's kicked out another driver who can't perform as well. So, as long as that's the reason that the driver's been chosen, then it will be, yeah, exciting times. But I don't think we'll be waiting too long. They just need a bit more time in the car, I think.
Yeah, I think more practice sessions, rookie practice sessions, that'll be later in the season, perhaps. I don't know which venues they'll look to do that, but hopefully we will see
Yeah.
a top quality female driver in on the Formula E grid back soon. Was sports presenting always what you wanted to do, Nikki? Because I know you've been involved in a lot of environmental programs like biological and zoological sort of sciences. You've done some filming at wildlife parks. But was sports presenting always something you wanted to do? Because I think you did follow cars when you were a kid, but
Yeah.
was broadcasting always something you wanted to do?
Um, no, quite simply. No. I mean, at school, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I think when I was choosing my A levels, I thought I might want to do medicine. Then so I did biology, chemistry, economics. When I then went to uni and had to decide, I thought doing a 5-year course was going to take too long. So I decided to do biology instead of medicine. A
I
silly
see.
decision to make when you're a teenager. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was just based on that one fact. I was like, oh, I'll be really old when I graduate. Although, to be fair, um, I mean, massive credit to all the incredible doctors, but they do spend their life studying, to make it up through the ranks. And exams is not something I enjoyed. I did not. I did not enjoy, yeah, I liked studying, but I did not enjoy the exam part. So I think it was the right decision. Um, but yeah, so I did biology and then thought, so where I went to uni is Bristol, and in Bristol we have the BBC National History Unit, so all the, you know, wildlife documentaries, David Attenborough shows are produced from there. Now, consequently, there's a ton of wildlife science production companies there, you know, spinning off to obviously then service the BBC. So it's a hub for all of that, which I didn't realize at the time when I chose Bristol. I basically chose Bristol because I had a mate there and we had a fun night out.
I
So yeah,
see.
that was an informed decision. So yeah, went to Bristol and then suddenly was going, there were all these like talks and lectures by either like they call them science communicators or journalists or science presenters, wildlife presenters, which I was going to, and found it really fascinating and thought it was a fun career to have. And I was like, well, I can then use my biology and what I know. I kind of know ish what I'm talking about. So let's do that. The sports thing was always just a hobby, like motorsport. I mean, I love tennis, I love rugby. I mean, I grew up in Twickenham, so spent half my life going to Twickenham matches. Dated a rugby player for 10 years, spent half my life watching him play rugby. So yeah, so I was always into sport, but never, it didn't even cross my mind that it could be um a job, a career. Just it was just something fun that I did at the weekend, watch sport.
Okay. Well, that reminds me of Lee Mackenzie a little bit because when she was on a show or a podcast, she had no idea what she wanted to do. And I think it wasn't until like her early 20s, if not a little bit later, that she wanted to be involved in something to do with sport. So it's kind of like a similar thing to perhaps what you've been through. But now look at where she is now. She's been doing pit lane reporting, I think for Channel 4 still, with Formula One. But and I'll use myself as an example with when it comes to studying. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do career wise. All I wanted to do was something within the media, but didn't know specifically whether it was going to be broadcasting or whether I wanted to be an editor or a video editor. But it wasn't until maybe when I started my own Formula One radio series that I wanted to become a presenter myself. So these things take time from when you are studying through GCSEs and then college and then university. And before long, I'd realised that presenting and broadcasting was always something I wanted to do. So, people do change their mindsets as the
Yeah,
years go by. And
absolutely.
they just think to themselves, right, what do you really love doing? What do you love watching the most? Or what do you love doing the most? Even if it's your hobby at the moment, what do you love doing? I will always say that to anyone that is wanting to get into a career within sports broadcasting or motorsport. Think about what you love doing. Is it engineering? Is it mechanicking? Is it PR? Is it marketing? Those are the things I would want to be asking to anyone that wants to pursue a career in motorsport. You've been
Yeah.
involved in a lot of pro. Gone.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I think, you mentioned, you said find out what it is that you enjoy. And I think that's the key, isn't it? If you can find what it is, that thing, and it might take you 10 attempts, but if you don't stop in the first job if you don't enjoy it, that job's not for you. Just keep looking, keep hunting. I mean, you can't swap jobs too much, but keep hunting, keep working out what it is that you love and that makes you tick, and in an environment that makes you tick. And then you don't feel like you ever work. And given the fact that we basically spend a majority of our lives working, you might as well find something that you enjoy doing.
Yes, absolutely. And I would put that advice to everyone really, and just understand what it is you want to do. Even if it's just through your college days, if there's a particular course at uni you want to do. Because I did a media production bachelor's and then a sports journalism master's, Nikki. And that's something I would say to anyone that wants to work within within broadcasting. It's good to have the degrees in your back pocket because it can lead to something in the future. Even if you don't know specifically within media or journalism what it is you want to be doing, whether it be broadcasting or
Yeah.
doing sort of print media or whatever, just
Or
something.
find an apprenticeship, unless your university degree really is, going to lead you on to a career in that space. How many people do I know use their university degree at work? Not many, really not many. And it costs a huge amount of money now. When I was at uni, it was comparatively cheap. I mean, it still took me a while to pay off my student loan, but I've made it. I mean, it's so expensive now. And I think you really have to think if you want to work in our space, how important is it? You know, there are I can't say that word, can I? Apprentices.
Apprenticeships.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Out there. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, Alexa Rendell, massive credit to her. Hugely successful pit lane reporter and presenter in Formula E and in the World Endurance Championship. She didn't go to university. She got a bit of work experience and she started working and she worked from the ground upwards. And now she's doing an amazing role at the age of 20 something. You know, she's super young and she doesn't have a massive university student loan debt hanging over her head. So it can be done without it.
yeah. Well, Izzy Brown is another name I'll throw in there as well, who was briefly involved in the commentary for F1 Academy in Abu Dhabi. She's just done some work for Alpha Live for the Winter Series, and massive credit to her, especially because she's young, she's mature, she looks like someone who everyone wants to listen to, and I think and someone else in particular, she's got a bright future ahead of her, as well as Alexa Rendell, as you've rightly mentioned. She was doing some stuff for the World Endurance Championship in the 1,812 kilometers of Qatar, and she's been involved in the endurance side of things for some time now. So yeah, best of luck to the pair of them because I do think they'll go far in their careers. Now, Nikki, within the last maybe couple of decades, let's say, we've seen a rise of women being involved within motorsport, but not just necessarily on the broadcasting side of things, but when you think of those like in mechanicking, engineering, head of race strategy, for instance, i.e. Ruth Buscombe-Davey or Bernie Collins, how have you seen the increased presence of women within motorsport? Because I'm in awe over it. I'm absolutely fond to see so many within the automotive world now, and that can only be a good thing, can it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in the same way that we talked about when are we going to see a female F1 driver, all of it takes time, but so much work is going on behind the scenes to inspire the next generation that motorsport is a place for them. And there's a role for them. And that can be, there's hundreds of different jobs that you can do in motorsport. It's not all about being the driver, of course. And it's just been brilliant to see. I mean, yeah, I think I mentioned earlier how in my paddock it just feels like such a 50-50 split. Whereas when I first started in the sport, women were few and far.
Yeah.
Like, we definitely did not have anywhere near the split that we do now. And I think, kind of a little bit thanks to social media, it's now a desirable place to be and to work, and the perception of it has changed. And you've got this next generation of fans and TikTokers and F1 girlies, whatever you want to call them. But what it's doing is it's bringing a new community and a new sort of strong female community into the sport. And they aspire to work in it.
Yeah.
So, ultimately that is going to change that kind of gender split.
And I would agree as well. And I'm absolutely pleased to see that there's more involved. But it's not just being taken on board as the fact that they're female broadcasters. It's people who can actually do the job very, very well. It doesn't matter what your gender is. And even if you're like transgender, let's say, because there are people of transgender who are involved in motorsport. Would be marshalling actually thinking of it, because we know we have a lot of volunteering marshals around the circuit, particularly in the UK. But yeah, I'm really pleased to see that we are seeing more and more women within motorsport, particularly in the world in Formula One now, because Esteban Ocon, for instance, has a new race engineer of Laura Muller, who, believe it or not, is the first ever race engineer within Formula One, which can only be a good thing. Hopefully, we'll see more of that in the
Mad.
UK.
First ever female race engineer.
Yeah, we've
Taken
had
till 2024, but it's happening. So yeah, no, I can't wait to see what she can do.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully she'll do a really, really good job with him. I think they'll get on, the pair of them. I'd like to think they will do, but 2025 and beyond, we'll only tell. So we'll have to see on that one. We've previously had a female team principal, Manisha Kaltenborn, if you remember. She was team principal of Sauber, I think for something like 6 or 7 years she was there for. But I think there was a Honda power unit deal that was put together from 2018, but that fell through eventually, and she left the team shortly after the deal fell through, and that was when Fred Vasseur came in as the team principal. Now he's team principal for Ferrari. But yeah, now going back to the
And
topic about
he built the Formula E car at Spark.
yeah, uh, I see. But no, I'm all for what we are seeing at the moment because growing up, considering I was born in 1995, growing up, I remember the likes of Gabby Logan being a brilliant broadcaster. She still is now, but I remember her. I also remember George Thompson, now Ainsley. There was also Charlotte Jackson. I remember Charlotte Jackson quite well because she was involved in a TV show for Sky Sports called "Take It Like a Fun," I think it was called, where it's basically
Right.
like it's basically like it's a bit of a quiz game involving football where they select random fans who go to the games and to give them a chance of winning some money on the back of what they know about football, essentially. But it was a great, great show that went on for a couple of seasons and then they dropped it afterwards. But that's how I remember Charlotte Jackson for. But
Oh,
hopefully, if we see something more like that within Formula One, that would be wonderful to see. With where like they select fans going to the events and giving them a chance of getting some cash or something like that. That'd be a great
yeah,
concept.
yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. But no, it's great to see. More about you. You've been
Yes.
involved in the Goodwood Festival of Speed, Nikki, on a
Yeah.
number of occasions. Was the most recent one
Yeah.
for you 2023, if I remember correctly, or did you do it last
Um,
year?
we did it last year. It all blurs into one, but I think I was there last year. Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
worked last year.
Yeah.
I was there more for Porsche, I think, working for them, sort of doing content for them. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think I first worked on it in 2014, and that was just like the best weekend of my life ever. I was like, oh, wow. And I think I was completely spoiled because in the first show that I did, I was on like the rally stage with Sebastian Loeb. We did a McLaren launch. We were up the hill climb, and I think it would have been what would it have been back then? Not a 725. Oh, I can't remember. I can't remember what it was. But maybe a 575. Anyway, we had a very, very special weekend, and then I was like, oh my God, I have to be a Goodwood every year going forward. It's just the best. It's just like a festival with everything motorsport that you could possibly hope for and imagine in one place.
Yeah. I've been to it for the last few years now. I went to it last year for a couple of days, and it's just something about it brings the fans together. It's in the middle of the summer. Families are out wanting to see some cars. There are racing drivers there, particularly those of Formula One. You've got supercars. You've got fully electrically powered cars. I think we've had some Formula E cars on showcase there as well. But I remember when I was doing some work for Gravity Media, because you were working closely with Tracy Pinder,
Yes.
who is a freelance producer, for those who don't
Yeah.
know who Tracy is. And that's how we first met, Nikki, I
Uh,
remember. And because I was working in the this sort of hub box that we were working in. And it was absolutely treacherous as well at times with like the rain coming down. I think you were 8 months pregnant back then, weren't you? Which I'd imagine it made it even more challenging for you. I was like, Nikki, you're 8 months
Yes.
pregnant. What are you doing?
I mean, literally, that's how stupid we are, really. I was like, I'm not missing it, but there's nothing wrong with me. What do you mean? Walking around doing, 10,000 steps a day yeah, I think I was literally like 8.5 months pregnant. Most people are at home putting their feet up. But no, I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to do this, in a month because I have a baby to look after. So I'm not going to miss it. But Tracy was amazing and looked after me incredibly well. And we even had like a little seat that we carried around with us. So in between shots, it's like, right, sit down. So I'd have a little sit down and then we'd carry on.
I see.
I got the full VIP treatment, which I don't get any other time, can I just say? Being pregnant did have its luxuries.
Okay. Well, I'll give you that because it was brave of you, I have to say, to do the gig considering all the circumstances. Um, but yeah, it's great to hear that as well as doing the work that you're doing now. Obviously, you're a mother of three, um, so it's phenomenal to see that where you are now and you're enjoying life with the way you are doing. Um, Going on to more maybe like on the wildlife side of things. I think you are a love you have a love affair for animals as well, don't you? Tell us more about the wildlife stuff that you've been involved in because I know you've done some filming stuff involved in that, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started out, did a lot of filming in it. Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier, kind of did a lot at various like wildlife parks, which was very special. I also used to do BBC Escape to the Country, and so we did a few VTs going to animal related places. I was the one that got to do the animals, which was nice. But I don't do so much filming with it anymore. I mean, it's still a massive passion and love, getting my kids involved, taking them to farms, oh, the joys. But from a filming perspective, I am pretty much now motorsport and science as well. I mean, I'm not doing it at the moment, but I did have a show on CNN for about 5 years that was really focused on one called Going Green and one called Supercharged, and that was very much with sort of science and sustainability at its core. Um, but oh, I wish I could get back into, well, they do say don't work with children, animals, and cars. So swapping cars for animals is equally tricky, I think. But yeah, to bring that back into my life would be lovely. I think that the thing that I was really aware of when I was starting my career, and this again was just personal to me at the time, is a lot of the wildlife documentaries that perhaps I could have attempted to try and go on, would have taken me overseas for maybe 2, 3 months at a time. And, knowing that I wanted to have a family and that I need to be around. I travel a lot for work as it is, but to suddenly disappear for 2, 3 months isn't really going to happen. So it's a dream that will probably never come true, but it was nice to have it while it lasted.
Mhm. Fully electrically powered cars. You are wholly passionate about that. What is it about electrically powered cars that interests you the most? And what's the future involving people driving, let's say, hybrids or fully electrically powered vehicles? Do you think it is a viable thing for decades to come?
It already is, isn't it? I mean, I live in London. Every other person has an electric or a hybrid car. I think the point is you don't notice the air quality improving until you go to a country where there's really bad air quality. And then you notice. And then you're like, oh, this is what we're doing. It's not necessarily just about saving money in our pocket, because ultimately that is what drives sales. If you can save money, you're going to buy it. No one is going to buy a car if it's going to cost them more money, if ultimately it will save the environment. People don't care about that. People care about, the cost in their pocket. So as electric cars become cheaper, which they are now, finally, it's taken its time. They're getting there. Ultimately, a lot of them, you do pay a premium still to go electric, but slowly the cheaper, more affordable cars are trickling through, which is amazing because it then suddenly means, you're opening it up to a much, much, yeah, bigger community, and more people will buy them. But I think, just living in London, it's like, yeah, the air quality is so much better, which means less people are going to start, dying of various respiratory diseases. And that's one of the main things, as well as obviously, reducing the amount of pollutants into the atmosphere, which will lead to an increase in climate change. But I think we can benefit it from today. I think people struggle when it's something that they can't really see and that they're going to maybe the next generation will benefit from, or the generation after that. They don't really necessarily appreciate it. But if you can appreciate it in your city today, then I think it just makes it more tangible. But yeah, I mean, electric cars, I mean, there's when I first started talking about electric cars, there were like three models. The Renault Zoe, the what was it? The Nissan Leaf, and another. And it was like slim pickings, and they were pretty bad. Whereas now, every other new car being released is electric, and they're amazing. They look cool. Previously they look really uncool. They go far. Minimum range 200 miles probably. who needs to do more than 200 miles in one go? I call it, forget range anxiety. You're going to have bladder anxiety. You're going to need to stop to pause and go to the loo. Charging is becoming much faster. It works now. There were so many teething problems at the beginning. Charging stations wouldn't work. You'd have to download an app that wouldn't work. You need a credit card that you don't have. It wouldn't work. It was just paved with challenges. And I get it. That's why people don't want to drive them. But now the technology's there. It's improved dramatically. I don't see why, if it's not going to cost you more, I don't see why you wouldn't just go for an electric car. I mean, maybe it's me because I'm getting older in age, but I used to drive, a hot hatch, and every set of traffic lights was like a drag race for me. That ship has sailed. I now live in an area where pretty much the fastest I can go is 20 miles an hour. I'm driving around in my 20-mile-an-hour zone. Um, and yeah, the car is quick because it's quick off the lights, because you have that instant acceleration that you do with an electric car. So from 0 to 20, I'm really quick.
Considering your content work involving electrically powered cars, which would you say was the one that you've enjoyed driving the most in?
Oh, really? So I think with an electric car, it so depends on what you need your car to do for you. So for me, because I have three very young children, all of which require a car seat, which is not easy. You should see the current contraption I have. I've got this bench, which is three car seats in one bench. The whole bench goes into the back of the car and it sits on top of the seats. It's quite amazing actually. It's been designed by a guy called, well, the company's called Multimac, and he came up with the idea because he ended up having lots of children and they couldn't fit in the car and there weren't enough Isofix in a car, and so he built this amazing car seat. You can actually get another version where you can put four car seats along the back. Um, but anyway, I digress. But the car that would suit me and my family life at the moment is a Kia, and it's called the Kia EV9. And it is beautiful. It's big. It's a massive SUV. It's got an incredible range. It is spacious inside. It looks kind of cool. It's quite out there. It's very structured. Um, and yeah, I really like it. So I go for
Excellent.
that. But then also I did just drive like a little Alpine, which was so much fun, more like a little hot hatch that we took to a track. So it really depends on what you like and what you're into. But there's something for everyone. There is something for everyone with electric.
Brilliant. I mean, I don't feel like I've took a ride in an electrically powered car itself. I've been on an electrically powered tube or a bus, for instance, but I've not been in an electrically powered car, not an electrically powered car. So hopefully one day that will happen at some
Well,
point.
next time I'm recording my F1 Academy, Tom, I'll take you for a ride.
Oh, that would be wonderful, Nikki. Thank you so much. Um, Staying on the
Goodbye.
topic of electrically powered vehicles, we'll go back to Formula E a little bit because they've done four races so far. At the time of recording, this is in between the rounds of Jeddah and Miami. Who's your tip for the championship this season? Are we going to have a 10th different champion in 11 seasons? What do you reckon?
No, I reckon at the moment, Antonio Felix da Costa is nailing it. Like he's doing really well. He's very consistent. He did a great half a season last season. The last part of the season was brilliant. And I think that momentum's just carried on. The Porsche powertrain is phenomenal. Are pretty unstoppable. And so is he. So he is already Formula E world champ. So potentially we might see another one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the standings now. Oliver Rowan on top of the standings with two wins from four. But one driver I am looking forward to in particular is Taylor Barnard, who has come through after a promising career in Formula 2 and Formula 3, despite the fact that he was racing for teams that were more inferior than the likes of Prema, Carlin, and all that. I'm
Mm.
really looking forward to see what he can bring to the table over at McLaren. He's doing a superb job already. I've got a feeling he will become a champion at some point. It's just a matter of when. So he'd be my
Ooh,
tip for the
yeah.
championship.
I mean, if he won a championship in his rookie season, that would be phenomenal. I mean, never say never. And you're right, he's doing an absolutely solid job. Made history, didn't he? Youngest podium finisher in Formula E. So he is just kind of unstoppable at the moment, but I don't know. Early days.
Yeah.
With
Max, yeah,
10 race weekends over the course of the season, we've only had three. I'm not saying it's beginner's luck, definitely not, because he's definitely got the talent, he's got the pace, he clearly he knows how to get the energy out of the car as well, which for a rookie doesn't always happen. Sometimes that does take a bit of extra time. So he's clearly very smart. He's got Sam Bird alongside him as well, who I think is being incredibly supportive. And obviously, Sam is an old wise man when it comes to Formula E, having been part of it since the very beginning. So yeah, interesting times. But yeah, no, I think you could be right in terms of, maybe this isn't his championship year, but it will happen potentially for him.
I would agree with that as well. Oliver Rowland's still yet to win a championship. He's won multiple races in Formula E now, so he could be one to be thrown into the conversation. Max Gunter, who I think is still the youngest ever race winner in Formula E, if I remember correctly. Um, he's another one that could be in there. I mean, Jake Hughes is high up there. So four of the top five currently, as we speak, have never won the championship in Formula E. So that's why I think we could well end up having a 10th champion in 11
Fair
seasons.
enough.
Yeah.
I mean, look at those stats. It was just the fact that I think Antonio might wrap it
Well, it
up.
could take some form of recovery. I mean, even if you're down at the bottom, as far as Formula E is concerned, you could all of a sudden claw it back. You really
Mm,
could claw it all back. Because this goes back to our conversation when we spoke about season 7, where you could be right at the bottom at the beginning of the championship, and then if you win like 2 races in a row or have 2 or 3 strong results in a row, that just all of a
yeah,
sudden throws you into the conversation of becoming champion. So that's why there's still a long way to go.
yeah, and also, I think early days, there's no real pressure to perform, but when you get closer to that final, championship decider, then the pressure really mounts and the cracks start to show. And that's exactly what happened in London last season with Mitch Evans, Nick Cassidy, and they kind of threw away the Drivers' Championship. One of them should have had it. But they did crack under pressure, unlike a tag watch. So I think the likes of Da Costa, who's got that experience. I mean, Oliver Rowland, I think, is a good one, actually. He he doesn't let anything get to him. He will be totally fine if he's in that title fight. He'll just still be as cool and calm as he is now. So yeah, keep an eye on him as well. But as we mentioned, there's a good caliber of drivers in there. So it'll be a fight to the end, I'm sure.
And Oliver Rowland, believe it or not, is from near where I'm from as well, because he's from Barnsley. It's
Hmm.
Oliver Rowland, and I'm
Yeah,
located on the west side of Yorkshire.
nice.
So it may be in the Yorkshire papers come July, where Oliver Rowland becomes the first
Yeah,
Yorkshireman to become Formula E champion.
yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be
You'll have
wonderful,
to get him on
actually.
your podcast.
I will do eventually, but I'm sure I'll have him on regardless of where he ends up. So, but yeah, hopefully I'll get Oliver on at some point. Another prediction I'll ask from you then, because you are close to it. F1 Academy, who's your tip for the title this season? Because you look at the experience of Dorian Pan, who's won races. You've got Maya Berg, who won her first race in the series in
Mm.
Abu Dhabi. Are they the two that are going to be considered the favourites for 2025?
I think you'd be hard pushed to look anywhere else, right? I think also the fact that I think particularly with Doria, when she won, she really won. And, when Abby Pulling won, Dorian wasn't far behind. So I think, and also given that she hadn't got experience in F1 Academy before, and given the fact that she's got so much else going on, she'll be right in, her A game. She'll be bringing her A game for each round. So I think the little pocket rocket, Dorian Pain, yeah, you'd be silly to look much further. And Maya Vug, also a great contender. She was maybe less consistent, I think. I mean, Dorian Pain had a great run of pole positions as well. So yeah, it's going to be tricky. I mean, I can't wait to see what Leah Block does because given the fact that she stepped into F1 Academy with virtually, she's done a little bit, but never a full season, that's for sure. Virtually no experience in a single-seater race car. She had a really respectable season. I think she qualified in fourth on one of the rounds. So given the fact that she's now got a bit more experience and she is very mature for her age, very focused. I think we should keep an eye on her. She might get in the mix now that she is a more experienced driver compared to some of the others in the field.
What does the future hold in Nicki Shields?
I wish I knew, Tom. No, there is actually something that is going to be, it's one of these really annoying things where I go, there's something exciting happening, but I can't tell you about it yet. And there is something exciting that I'm going to be doing this year, but I can't tell you about it yet.
Okay.
So that will be, so I'm, cracking on with Formula E, cracking on with F1 Academy. I'm actually involved in a F1 Academy kind of event series, like a community-based event series where we're going to be celebrating F1 Academy and bringing it to the fans with sort of Q&A sessions, panel discussions. So I'm excited about that. Then there is, I will probably no doubt be at Goodwood, and also Silverstone Classic. That's always a good one. Silverstone, like big festival. But there is something else big in motorsport that I am doing that I will be able to tell you about very soon, which I'm really excited about. Kind of new project, new team, and something to really keep me on my toes. That's for sure. But it will be yeah, it will be more time spent at more racetracks.
Cool. What does the future hold for women in motorsport or in sports broadcasting from your perspective? What are
Oh,
we expecting to see in about 10 years or so?
I mean, I think in sports broadcasting, I mean, I already feel like it's a pretty strong 50-50 split. I can't, obviously, we can always do better. More opportunity from those younger ears. So I don't think we're going to see a massive shift in sports broadcasting. Um, and then on the motorsport side, it's still got a long way to go. We will see a big change. We're already just seeing it now, drivers slowly trickling through in 10 years' time. If we don't see a female F1 driver in 10 years' time, we've done something very, very wrong. By then, we should have one.
Okay.
Hopefully before. But I think all of that hard work that we've been doing will have paid off by then for sure.
Is the trip to space still on for you? Because I looked
Oh,
at I looked at the website of yours, and one ambition, your lifetime ambition, is to be the first presenter in space. Is that still feasible?
God, I would love it. So this all sort of, I wanted to do it, and I actually spoke to, so Richard Branson used to have a Formula E team, and I was like, right, can we make this happen? And obviously he was like, oh, of course. Obviously that means nothing, but it was nice of him to, humor me. The problem is, now that I've got three children, I don't think I can go to space. Not that he's invited me or anything, but the risks are still too high in my eyes. As a mathematician, as a scientist, the risks are too high. And yeah, I'm not going to do anything that might take me away from my kids. I don't want to put them in any sort of situation. But having said that, the work that is going on for space exploration at the moment is amazing. And if I didn't have kids, heck, I'd be up there in a millisecond if the invite came in.
Okay. What would be your advice to those then, Nikki, given the experience you've had in the sports media world? What would be your advice to anyone, young guns, let's say, so particularly those who are like 16, 17, or even a few years older? What would be your advice to them in wanting to pursue a career in motorsport?
You can 100% do it. Don't let anything get you down. Sometimes you're going to have a great week. You'll be at a racetrack, an opportunity will happen. Follow it up, chase it, and then there might be another the week where it doesn't happen and things aren't going your way and you're losing hope, do not lose hope. There is an opportunity for everyone in motorsport if you really, really want it. I think the best thing to do is just start building your community, start turning up to race events, start emailing people. People aren't mind readers. This is what I say. Just because you stand up to a racetrack and you stand there and show interest doesn't mean that I know that you want to be a runner on a TV show in motorsport. It's like you got to come up to that person, you got to tell them, you got to send them your details, you got to show them what you can do. Be proactive. I think if you're proactive, you can stand out from the rest. And then suddenly, that's a very employable skill. Um, and I think people are always willing to give people that are keen to get into the industry an opportunity, a chance if it's there. I also think, if you've asked once, don't feel bad about asking again because things change, situations change. So just keep communications open, I think is the important thing. And yeah, build that community and you'll hear about an opportunity coming up. But as I say, you've got to be in lots of places, lots of times to be in the right place at the right time. So just keep doing that.
Nicki, it's been brilliant having you on. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me and to everyone today about your career and everything else with all the advice you've just given there. And the best of luck in everything you do involving Formula E, F1 Academy, and all your other future endeavours.
Amazing. Thank you, Tom, for having me.
No problem.